if you're here in the US listening, it is springtime, new season. Finally, we got to spring forward and it's staying light outside a little bit longer than what it usually does. So that's really nice that it's not getting so dark so soon. And the weather is hopefully going to be getting nicer here. And we're just kind of, moving into a new season. So, new season means new beginnings, new goals, new everything. And that is actually perfect for today's episode because I figured we would talk about health and wellness for beginners, people that are wondering, okay, I want to live a healthier lifestyle. I want to get into wellness, but I really don't know where to start. And so we're going to talk about that today. Specifically, I wanted to give 3 tips on starting your health and wellness journey. Like before you even really get going, you should really try to do these 3 tips first as like a precursor to really set you up for success on whatever journey that you're going to be taking, whether it's going to be getting more physically fit, improving your social life, getting more organized around your house, just feeling more put together in your life. These 3 tips are going to really help you out. And I wish that I knew this before I was really into health and wellness. I think it would have helped me not have to restart my goal so many times. So if you're new to health and wellness and are really beginning and want to know where to start, this is great. But also if you are about to restart a goal, maybe you set a goal at the beginning of the year and said, I wanted to be more consistent in working out or whatever, or getting better sleep, going to bed at a better time, whatever your goal is. If you kind of fallen off and need a restart, this is a great time. Spring, new season. We're entering the second quarter of the year, and here are some 3 good tips that are really going to help you stick to it this time. All right, so let's get into it. Tip number 1, take time and really assess your values. Figure out what is valuable to you, what is important to you in life. Checking in with yourself every so often to see, what do I say I value at life? And I like to use scales. On a scale of 1 to 10, how valuable is family in my life right now? And if I say it's like a 9, I might ask myself, okay, and how satisfied am I with my family life right now? That's a good way to gauge where you are in satisfaction and also in prioritizing what you think is valuable to you in life. So this is really going to be helpful for you on your health or your wellness journey or your new goals, because if you are trying to work on an area that's not high in value to you, it may be feedback that maybe you shouldn't start there. Maybe you should start somewhere else. So let's talk about values. Knowing what is valuable and what's important to you is so key, because honestly, it helps you not get caught up. It helps you not get so distracted and caught up in what other people are doing, what other people are saying. And it honestly just helps you be true to yourself or remain authentic. You're less likely to do things in a performative way or in a people-pleasing way, because if you are aligned with your values, you'll be able to sift through all the advice and all the suggestions easier, because you'll be able to reference your values. And if somebody is recommending something to do that maybe is not harmful or bad, but if it doesn't align with your values, you can easily toss that aside. We live in a world where there is so much information given to us, and everybody has suggestions and everybody has opinions and everybody has the best way to do things, but that can really get overwhelming. We get into information overload, and I understand why sometimes we just shut down. You may be like, this is just too much, I can't take on anything else, I can't even begin to process all the information that's given to me. And I think really becoming aligned with what is important to you or what is valuable to you is a really good way to be able to decipher through what you should keep close and what you should not even spend more time on. If you heard that and are kind of wondering to yourself, I don't know how to figure out what my values are, or I just don't know how to even do that, that's okay. I was there too. I think the first time I was setting out to really learn or articulate what my values were was when I was in college, and it was for a course, and I was like, I don't know. And it was easy to maybe just list things that I felt like were the right answer, like, family is valuable to me, food, shelter, God, like things that just felt like almost intuitive to say. Those were things that I was listing, and nothing is wrong with those things. That is absolutely fine. But I think I wasn't being intentional about that. Again, that's what I thought was maybe the right answer. So it's not a bad starting place, but just because you list the first things that come to mind, you can maybe explore why you're saying those things as well. Just because something that is part of your life on a daily basis doesn't mean you have to have an extreme value for it. Maybe for you it's not school, maybe it's work. Like, yes, you understand that you have to work, you have to earn an income, and it's important for you to work, but you may be one of those people where work really isn't everything for you. So you can maybe work a job that just pays the bills and have a whole life outside of work because it's not that valuable to you. Whereas some people really are passionate about their work and really need it to be aligned with who they are, and it's going to be extremely important for them to love what they do. It's not just a check to them. So it's really good to maybe explore why you are listing the things that you say are valuable to you. It is absolutely a good idea to start with the things that are already part of your daily life. So that could be work, that could be school, that could be family, it could be church or your relationship with God, it could be friends, just your romantic life, your household. All of those things are part of our life. And what you may find is that you value all of those things, and that's fine. There's no issue with that. We are complex beings, okay? It is absolutely normal and okay to have a value, some level of value for each and every one of those things. I like the rating system because it can really put in perspective how valuable you view each of those things. If I am saying my home and how my home makes me feel is at an 8, and my job, I'm one of those people that maybe don't need my job to give me my whole life. Like, it doesn't have to be this thing that I absolutely love. I may rate it at, like, a 3. I know I need a job. I know I need to make money, but it's not the most important thing to me. I have a life outside of work. If I'm starting my health and wellness journey and don't know where to start, looking at the things in my life that are already there and how much I value them may give me some insight as to where to start. So, like I was saying, if home is at a higher level of importance to me, it's at an 8, and work is at a 3 or 4, and I'm satisfied with my work life, but my home life is, I'm like, oh, it's like a 4. I'm not that satisfied in how everything looks and the way that my home makes me feel. That's a pretty big gap. I value it at an 8, but I'm only satisfied at a 4. That's a feedback that could be a potential area that I can focus on developing and growing in. An example of how things kind of change is for me with career. When I was just finishing up my undergrad degree at 20 years old, I would have said that career was a really strong 9 for me, and it was just really important, and I was just, ready to get out of college, ready to get in the real world and get a big girl job and start making money and things that way. And that was what was important to me. Now, several years later, I'm not single, I'm married, and I have a baby, and things are a little different. Work, I would still rate very high, maybe a 7 though, not maybe a 9. It's still very important. I still have a lot of big goals right there. But I became a mom in this past year, so family went up even a little bit more. My focus at this moment in time is on family. So as much as I still am a career-driven person and am ambitious about that, I understand that at this moment in my life right now, something else is a little bit more valuable. And so I'm going to maybe focus on family more than I would career. Not a whole bunch because they're both still high, but maybe just a little bit more. So how high you rate the importance of the values can actually switch for each area of your life. It depends on where you are. And that's why this is a good reference point, especially if you don't know where to start in your health and wellness journey. It's a really good way to gauge what's going on in your life, what is valuable, what are you satisfied with. So again, to simplify it, start with things that are part of your daily life and like work, school, church, family, friends, your home life, your space, and maybe rate how valuable it is to you. and then assess how satisfied in that area of life. It's a high value but low satisfaction. That could be an indication that you should start with one of those areas where there is a gap. Now, if you have several areas where there's a couple gaps, don't worry. I'm not going to leave you hanging there. I'm going to tell you what to do with that as well. That leads us to tip number 2, choosing an area of focus. So a lot of times when people want to start on their health and wellness journey, you probably already have something in mind. You probably already know, yeah, I want to get in better shape. So I need to focus on working out, or my how I eat, or you were recently diagnosed with a new condition. It could be anxiety, diabetes, high blood pressure, something, anything, a new diagnosis. So you really need to get your physical health back to par, or learn how to deal and live with the new condition. It could be that every time you come home from work, you are just stressed because you hate the place you live, you hate how it looks, you hate how it smells, you hate everything, the location, or you're just not satisfied with it. It doesn't even have to be strong as a word as hate, but you know that there is a need for growth there. So if you already have that in mind, if I say what's an area of your life you want to improve on, and you are able to say immediately, because there's been something that's been weighing on your mind, you could absolutely start there. Absolutely. That's always an option. If you are in a place where you're like, well, there's a few things that I want to work on. I want more friends. My social life isn't great. I need a better space. My home life isn't great. I need my own place, or whatever it is, or you want to revamp how it looks, or you need to be more physically fit too. Those are 3 areas right there that you could be wanting to work on. And that's okay. But how do you choose which one to start? Honestly, I think it depends on what you need. If you're at a place in your life where things have just been feeling kind of hard, and you really just need some wins in your life, and you maybe have just been feeling down, I think it would be best to start with the area where there is the least amount of dread when it comes to addressing it. If there is a lot of stress around getting back into shape physically, I'm not saying don't get into shape physically. I would never say that, but I'm saying it may not be the best area to start in given your mental health condition and where you are right now. If you really just need a win in life, and that's the area that there's a lot of anxiety surrounding it, maybe we need to start a little bit smaller than that. But if the idea of maybe starting with decorating your space is a little bit more exciting, it's not as heavy of a goal for you, that just feels lighter, it might be better to start there. So if you're really struggling, I would say to start with an area that there's the least amount of dread, least amount of hesitation, least amount of overwhelm, so that you can be way more likely to start seeing some results, some successes, and have some wins. And that's a good method, because seeing wins in one area of your life really shifts your perspective and increases confidence, increases your self-esteem, and it builds up that hope. So when you start facing other things, you begin to see that, okay, I can handle hard things. I just had this win. You feel a little bit more prepared, more ready to do something else. So that would be my recommendation if you are kind of struggling between goals and where to start. And I also will say, making behavior changes, lifestyle changes is never, easy, right? Even if it is like you want to decorate your space and learn how to be cleaner, that's going to take time to do, to really change how you treat your space. If you have a habit of just throwing things all over the place and you want to change that, that's going to take time and repetition, and you're not always going to want to clean up after yourself. But if you're trying to get to that, it's going to take time, and it's not necessarily always going to be something super easy to do. So I'm saying to start with a thing that you're maybe most excited about, but don't get that confused with thinking that it's maybe the easiest thing to do. It may be the easiest thing to approach, but not necessarily the easiest thing to do. Okay, once you find an area that you want to focus on, be it the one that came to mind, or you've kind of concluded you're going to start with the one that is you're most excited about or have the least amount of dread with, the next thing you're going to want to do is just try to see if there's any way you can kind of see your values in that goal. Let me explain. One thing for me that I really like about my career or whatever job that I'm working is a certain level of autonomy. I need to not work with people that are micromanagers. I need them to just be able to kind of let me be flexible with the task. They trust me, basically. That's something I find really valuable in a job. So if I know that that is something that is extremely valuable to me in career, I'm going to rate that high. And then if I say that the area that I'm going to focus on in my life as far as working on is my space, my environmental wellness, so maybe my home and how, for me, maybe that how it looks, I might see if there's any kind of relation or any way that I can bring my values into that area. So, say for instance, career and autonomy. I value that. I value being able to be trusted by my managers or whoever, and I can just really do for myself. Like they just trust me to get the job done. So if I know that I value that, I might say, how can I apply that kind of concept in my home? So in my home, I know that I'm probably going to be living with family, and family for me is rated very high as well. If family is rated high and also autonomy, where I can kind of do for myself, I'm trusted, I might see if I can kind of bring that into my space. Granted, family members may not have those same values, but you're experimenting, you're figuring out what works. You're starting from ground zero or trying something new. And I know that I value this in one area of my life. Let's see if it ties over into another. So a way to really make this, like, kind of paint the picture for you. For my space, I might say that, okay, I know that family is really important to me. So I need my space to feel welcoming, to be comfortable for multiple people to enjoy and enjoy the room, enjoy the space. That's one thing that I might prioritize because I value family. So it's important for my space to be family oriented. Another thing with the career and autonomy, I value people being able to do for themselves. So how can that maybe tie into my space? If I have blankets, I don't want to have to clean up after everyone, so I might have a basket for people to be able to put their blanket in, and if they're not using it. It may work, and it may not, depending on your family and your family members, what does and doesn't work for you. But you see how I can kind of look at my values in my life, my whole life, the things that are part of my life, and see if it can relate to the area that I'm trying to work on. So that's just one example right there. And I say to do that to maybe just see if there's any kind of correlation. There doesn't have to be, but sometimes when you can point out what is valuable to you and see how it shows up in other areas of your life, you can do the same things with strength. So let's keep going with the career example. I know one of my strengths is being able to work on my own. I don't need much direction. Once you tell me what you need, I'm able to just kind of follow along with that. So if I'm able to do that, or if I am really good at coming up with plans for my job, if I'm a organizer for my job, or if I teach people things, if maybe you're a teacher or something, see how can you do that in other areas of your life? If you're maybe a teacher and you're good at explaining things and really breaking things down so it's not overwhelming to people, and you're trying to work on your physical wellness, that area of your life, you may be able to check your strength as a teacher and see, okay, how can I teach myself how to approach physical wellness? Well, you may say, okay, I need to come up with my lesson plan. I need to know the outline of what it is I need to do, and kind of break it down really. So I think playing to your skills and playing to your values is kind of like a cheat code in being successful and being able to rule out a bunch of things that maybe don't work or wouldn't be a great place to start. It really helps to reduce the overwhelm, because a lot of times your skills, your values are going to show up in other areas of your life. It's just a matter of being intentional and being open to seeing it. So I think, again, figure out your values, figure out how satisfied you are with those values. Number 2, choose an area to focus on, whether it's be the one that comes to mind immediately, or if you have several areas, the area that has the least amount of dread, and then see if there's any relation in the two. If there's not, that's okay. That's fine. It doesn't have to be. But if there is, whether it's a value or a strength, see how it can show up in that area that you're going to be focusing on. That could be so helpful and really help you save a lot of time with figuring out what works for you. Because if you're beginning or if you're restarting, that's saying that what you tried before didn't work, or you're starting so you don't know what works. So doing all of this is going to help you figure out what works for you sooner than later. You'll be able to cut through a lot of options that aren't going to work for you because they're not going to align with your values, or they're not an area that you want to focus on. So this is why figuring out your values and figuring out what you want to focus on is going to be incredibly helpful when it comes to your health journey. Okay. And tip number 3, the last tip here, begin with the end in mind. Have a vision. What is it that you are working towards? It may not be enough to say, I want to be more physically fit. I want a cleaner space. I want friends, or I want to feel better about my job. That's a focus, but it may not be enough to just say that. You really have to begin with the end in mind if you are going to be in this for the long haul. That's just like really one of the key aspects of goal setting and being aware and being able to stay focused or stay motivated enough to keep going, is knowing where you're headed. You have to get specific about your goal and then what it looks like. You may find a job that pays more than your current job, but if it's a job that has you sitting at a desk all day when you prefer to be traveling, you're not going to be satisfied. They're giving you something that, yes, you maybe value more money, but if you ignored your value of being able to move around or travel, you're not going to be satisfied. There's going to be that level of growth. So if you can identify that from the jump, you see how that saves you time in taking jobs that aren't going to be a great fit for you or accepting it, So, and even when you have to take jobs that maybe aren't necessarily your dream jobs to just get by right now, you can still find ways to incorporate your values. You don't have to always just fully ignore them or give them up. And sometimes we do that because we're not even aware of what they are. So knowing your values and also having a vision of what you're headed towards or what you would like is really going to help cut out a bunch of mess and unnecessary attempts. 3 questions that I learned to ask when it comes to making lifestyle changes and changing your behavior are: 1, what are key aspects of your vision? Picture yourself reaching the goal that you're working on right now. And when you take the time to think about that, point out the things that you notice about it. What is key there? Who's there? What do you look like? How do you feel? What's your demeanor looking like? So what are key things in that envisioning of you reaching that goal? Take note of that. You could actually physically write it down. Question number 2, what are you doing more of in that vision? So when you have that career, when your space is more inviting and more homey, what are you doing more of in that space? Are you having more people over? Are you spending more time there? Are you more relaxed? Are you just happier in that space? What's going on? What are you doing more of? 3rd question, what are you doing less of? Are you less stressed? Are you cleaning less because you really worked out a system that keeps a space pretty together? Are you doing less job hunting because you found the job that you wanted? Are you hanging out with people more because you found a group of friends? What is it that you're doing more of? What is it that you're doing less of? Knowing those things are also going to help you really get clear on where you're headed, right? Taking the time to explore questions like these is what's really going to help you see the hope, still be inspired, and really have clarity when you start getting distracted, when the excitement isn't there as much anymore, when it gets kind of hard and you want to kind of quit. Checking in on your vision, checking in on your values, checking in on your focus might do the trick in helping you to keep going. So if you don't know where you're going, if you don't have any idea of what it looks like, how are you going to know when you reach it? How are you going to know that you reached the goal? So knowing where you're going is part of getting there. When I first started on my health and wellness journey, it really got jump-started because of me being diagnosed with anxiety disorder. But there came a point that I realized, man, I'm really going to have to make some lifestyle or behavior changes so I can learn how to cope with this. if I want to be healthy and well, I'm going to have to learn how to live with this. And so for me, when it came to choosing an area of focus, that I chose that area because that was a part of my life that had been weighing on my mind, and it affected every aspect of my lifestyle. So I wasn't one of those people at that time that had to kind of narrow down where I wanted to start. There was already something kind of big and looming and just already in my face that I had pushed it off and waited so much. I knew that that's where I needed to start. Now in my life, I could probably weigh a couple different options and choose the one that I'm have the least dread. So, it changes depending on where you are in life. That's absolutely fine. But when I was learning how to cope with anxiety and how to live in a way that I had healthy lifestyle behaviors that didn't necessarily trigger my anxiety, having a vision of where I wanted to go was so helpful. Having that and God as my compass really helped clarify the direction that I needed to head. So doing these things can save you a lot of trouble, especially if you're already dealing with something that is tough. Like for me, anxiety was tough and it affected every area of my life: school, family, social life, everything. Why not make it a little easier on myself by even just creating a vision of where I need to go? And at the time, I didn't even go all out and make like a vision board or have a poster or anything. I just took the time to do it. So like mentally do it. But you could definitely create a vision board if that's what's going to help you. You could write it out on a piece of paper. You could have it in your note section of your phone, just so you could have a point of reference. You can write it out and make it your screensaver, whatever is going to help. But at least doing it, taking the time to think of it, which is what I did at the time, was just think of what my vision would be. Picturing myself was actually really healing and helpful, to picture myself not being anxious, not having to leave a room when I was feeling overwhelmed or anxious. That was even helpful because I'm like, oh, if I can picture myself doing it, I can probably actually get there. I remember this time I was actually seeing a therapist for my anxiety, and this is when my values really was helpful for me. I was seeing this therapist, and I had just got done telling him how my family was super supportive for me, and I wanted to keep them along in this journey of me figuring out how to cope with anxiety. They knew I was in therapy, and they were just who I wanted to keep as my support. So I went through all of that, and then one of his suggestions was, okay, how about you do this, and then you just don't tell your family. You keep it from them, and you kind of whatever. And I was so like annoyed at that because he ignored what I had just said was super valuable to me, So, and he may have had a professional reasoning for why he did that, but I felt like he did not hear me say what was incredibly important for me. That was my value. And so eventually I did stop working with that therapist. But that just goes to show that there are going to be people along the way, whether it's friends, families, or professionals, that are going to come in and make suggestions to you and give you their opinions. And they are probably well-intentioned. Most friends, family, I won't say, well, a lot of times they think they are helping you, right? But if you don't even know what your values are, you're going to maybe take that advice, and then if it doesn't work, it's kind of overwhelming. You're trying every suggestion or every recommendation that every family or friend or professional is making because you have no idea where you stand. So taking the time to be clear on what your values are and what's important for you at this moment in your life is going to help you have some kind of center. I knew that family wasn't an area I was willing to compromise in value at that point in my life when I was dealing with my anxiety, because they were the most constant there and they were really supportive. So I wasn't willing to start compromising that at that time. So if he was going to be working with me and he couldn't support that, that relationship wasn't going to work. Knowing your values is also going to be able to help you decipher when you can keep people in your circle and when you need to find somebody else, even if they are a professional. And what it comes down to, when it's not a professional, sometimes people are just trying to help, and sometimes they just don't even realize they're not really looking for suggestions at that time. Just because you open up about what you're dealing with or what you're working with, they may really be trying to help. But it's not your job to try to control their suggestions. It's just your job to try to stay aligned with your values. And sometimes they are very helpful, because maybe they have walked that path before. I mean, I was talking to a professional therapist. I'm sure he was way more versed in anxiety treatments than I was and just how to go about it. But I was still the one dealing with it. I was still the one that was going to be making the changes. And that was a step that I wasn't comfortable with. And that's not what I valued. And of course, I'm not saying to never take the advice of friends, family, professionals, whatever. There's always a time and a place, right? Don't just, of course, write people off all the time. But when you're starting something new that you are figuring out, and there's going to be a lot of experimenting for you, it can get really easy to get lost in the sauce of suggestions and opinions and perspectives. So this is just a tip to maybe help you not get lost in the sauce. You can have your center of realizing what is valuable for you, and it can help you be clear on whether you should take or leave whatever advice is being given to you at that time. So regardless of where you are, whether you are just now starting your health and wellness journey for the first time, or you are restarting a goal that you've been wanting to work on, a lifestyle change, know that change takes time. And even with doing these tips, it doesn't mean you're going to get it right the first time, but hopefully it helps make the journey a little easier. That's the intention for sharing these tips with you, okay? Change takes time. There's no magic pill that makes change necessarily an overnight process. But there are things that we can do to make the journey easier. And why wouldn't we want that when, life throws unexpected changes to us all the time? So this is the intention in sharing these. All right. I hope that was helpful. This is all I have for today. Share this episode with a friend. As I was saying earlier, with springtime and a new season coming or getting here, this is a perfect time for people to really start setting some new goals or restarting some old goals. And this could be really helpful with someone. So share a friend. Maybe it'll help them out. I appreciate you so much for taking the time to listen. As always, I enjoy sharing this kind of information. So until next episode, bye.